What is up, everybody? Jarrett from Empire of Assets here, and today I wanted to shoot a quick little video on some things to consider when you are buying cards for your personal collection. A couple videos ago I showed you guys some of the cards that I've recently picked up for my Dragon Knight collection. I am trying to collect one of every Dragon Knight card ever made. I believe there's about 39 different ones. So it's going to be a little bit of a journey, but I did just get a big one in the mail. Probably my second favorite Dragon Knight card ever. I will show that guys to you right now. Just got this bad boy in the mail, and that is the 1998 Dragon Knight Japanese Game Boy promo. This card is absolutely gorgeous. I love the artwork on that with the cool starry background and the holographic and Dragon Knight just sitting there. Such a cool card. Unfortunately, it never came to English, which is why I picked up the Japanese version. This is a CGC 9, and I'm not going to recover the stuff we talked about in that video, but I did talk about buying 9s or 8.5s or 9s or 9.5s instead of 10s. I talked about buying SGC or CGC cards because I think they're undervalued. Personally, I really love the CGC case. I love the clear case. I love the label. I think they look super clean. Unfortunately, this person didn't pay the money to get subgrades, which I think is a little silly on a card like this. This card was not quite, actually they come down in price. They were about $200 when I started looking at them. I snagged this one on eBay for $164, which was a really good deal. One thing to keep in mind, somebody had listed two of these CGC 9s. They ended about a day apart, and this was the second one. That first one sold for about $175, $180. So I did save about 15 bucks by bidding on the second one, and the reason for that is pretty obvious. Obviously, it's taking one of the buyers out of the pool because they bought the one the day before. They're not looking for one anymore, so there's one less person bidding on the card. And a card like this in a CGC case in a market like we're in right now, probably not the most in-demand card. So I was able to snag it for what I believe is a really good price. And with the CGC 8, I can see literally no flaws in this card. There's not any scratches in the hollow. The centering looks pretty good to me. It is just overall a super clean card. I think you're getting so much value with the CGC 9 or CGC 9.5. Unfortunately, without the subgrades, we can't tell where it did get dinged, but man, this is just an absolutely gorgeous card, and probably now the most valuable and my favorite Dragon Knight card that I have in my collection. There's a couple at PSA that might rank higher than this, but this is it for right now, and I am absolutely in love with this card. So very happy to have that. So let's get into what I want to talk about, things to consider when buying cards for your collection. Let's take out this other graded CGC Dragon Knight card I have, and let's talk about some things to consider when buying these. So first off, if your budget wasn't limited and you were trying to collect all the cards of the Pokemon, you would just buy all PSA 10s or CGC 10s or 10s of whatever, not worry about it. If you had very little money, you probably shouldn't be investing in cards, but if you were, you would buy all the cards raw, you would grade them yourselves, hope for the best grade, and that is what you would do. If you're like most of us watching this video, you're probably somewhere in the middle where you don't have unlimited funds, but hopefully you have a little bit of money to throw at the cards, and that's going to put you in the similar situation to me. And here's some of the things I think about when buying them. So a card like this from 1998, it was a Game Boy promo. The card is so old, and the higher grades of the card aren't completely out of reach. Less than $200 for this card. So I'm going to actually go ahead and buy this card already graded instead of trying to buy a raw copy, really look it over good, and then submit it into grading, because the odds of me finding one that is a 9 or better is going to be really tough. So I'm just going to spend the $175 to buy the copy already graded. That way I don't have to wait for the grading. I don't get a card that maybe only grades a 7 because of some defect. I don't have to buy multiple raw copies and submit them all. I don't have to pay the grading fees. And a big thing that's going to go into this is what is the price of the raw card versus the price of the graded card. I believe on a card like this it was almost $50 for a raw copy. So if I had bought 3 copies, graded them all, I would have been at $175, probably more than that, because grading's $15 a card right now with CGC. So that would be another $50. So you'd be at 200 there, and then you're still waiting. I don't know how far backed up they are now, but it's quite a bit, and you might not get one that grades as high as this because it is just such an old card and they've been around for so long, which is why on a card like this, I'm going to buy an already graded copy. Now the next card that I'm going to buy an already graded copy on is the opposite of that, which is a new card, but a new card that even graded is so cheap, it doesn't make sense for me to grade it myself. This 9.5 Evolutions Dragon Knight EX was about $45 to $50. So when I break that down, it doesn't have subgrades, but just to get this card graded is going to be $15. So right there, you're down to $35. If you want to buy a nice clean copy, it's probably going to be $10 or $15. So really, if you wanted to do it yourself, you'd probably pay $30. And for the extra $15 to $20, I can just already get a copy. I don't have to wait the time. If the card spikes in value, then you're losing out on that. And maybe the copy you get doesn't get a 9.5. These cards are newer, so most of them are going to be cleaner. And there's a lot of them out there, so I'm sure if you really put the time into it, you could find them. But it's just better to not take the risk. And a 9.5 in a CGC is just such a tough grade to get that I think it would be difficult to do this just by submitting cards yourself. So here's another situation where I'm going to buy the card already graded. So at this point, you're probably like, well, if you're buying all these cards already graded, what's a situation where you would buy a raw card and grade it yourself? Well, the first answer to that is pretty obvious, and that's going to be cards that are just out of my price range to afford in a decent grade. The goal for my collection is to buy all the cards in at least a 9 or better condition, but there is certain cards, for example, the first edition Neo, I'm going to forget what Neo it is, but the Light Dragon Knight card, holographic, I believe Neo Revelation maybe. I'm trying to think which one it is. I think it's Revelation, but the Light Dragon Knight card is a very expensive card. I was watching a CGC one that ended last night, sold for about $400 in a 9, which is a great price. If you were looking for that card, a PSA 9 goes for well over $500. I think they might even be getting close to that $700, $800, $900 range. So a very expensive card. That card is probably one that I'm going to have to try and buy a clean copy of myself for $200 to $300 and then just pay the $15 to have it graded and hope that the grade does good, because unfortunately it's not going to be a card that I can pay $600+ for to get. And then if you did buy that CGC one for $400, I'd probably want to crack it. Maybe you crack it, submit it to CGC. CGC is a little stricter than SGC, and they bump you down a couple grades. So I guess you could keep it in the SGC, but that's all personal preference and what you want to do with your collection. But that is the one category of card that I would buy raw, is just stuff that you can't afford. So you're just going to have to do the due diligence, wait for good auctions on really clean cards that maybe other people are missing, snipe those off eBay, and then submit them yourselves. I do think there is a lot of room to make money doing this. I do have one example of another card that I just bought, and this was a Kabutops EX card from EX Sandstorm set. I will pop it out of its case here really quick. And this is a good example of that. This card is super, super clean. It was on auction, but there's a little tiny bit of scratching. These silver borders are terrible for scratching. That's why it's so tough to grade these EX cards. And it is a little bit off center on the back, you can see. This border is just a tiny bit thicker than the other one. Probably a PSA 8, I would say. PSA 8, possibly a chance at a 9. But if you look up the pop report for this card, there's only like less than 200 graded in a 9 or better. And I bought this card in auction for like 21 bucks. So it is a super clean card from 2004, 2003, an old card. This is definitely one that you could submit to probably CGC or PSA, get graded, and then sell for a nice profit. I think there's lots of cards out there that people aren't really watching. Kabutops is not the most popular Pokemon, but if you wanted to complete a total set of the EX Sandstorm, you would need this card, and the card in a decent grade is very expensive, which is why I do think there is opportunities, particularly in those old EX sets. That is kind of the sets that people my generation grew up with. And I think as people my age start to get into jobs, graduating college, and start having disposable income, I think these cards are going to do very well, similar to the Neo sets, because there just is not that many EX sets out there, and they do have some of the most iconic Pokemon of all time in them, with some absolutely stunning artworks, in my opinion. So that is the other situation there where you're going to want to buy raw. And then the last one I want to talk about, I don't have any of the cards, but I can show these off. These I bought from a local guy, but it's going to be modern cards, brand new cards that just came out that are very unlikely to have any damage to them. So the odds of you being able to buy them and get them to grade a 9 or higher is very high. That Evolutions one is about 5 years old now, and it was only $50. But a card like, for example, this Zacian V, which I am really big on these black and gold cards. I think they are undervalued. You can buy the Eternatus V and V Max ones for like 15 to 20. You can pick up the Zacian and the Zamazenta V for about $10 or less a piece. So I do think they are a good buy. This one has 8 on the back of it, so maybe it was even cheaper than that. But I do think that is a good buy, and this is a card you could get graded, because you're going to have about, with $15 in grading, if you don't get subgrades, you would have about, say $10 for the card, $15 to get graded, shipping there, probably $30 on the card, and it's probably going to be worth probably close to $50, so you're not going to make a ton of money. But if you believe in the card long term and you hold it and the prices go up, you could do very well. The other cards that I did pick up, this nice Blastoise VMAX, I think this is a really cool card. They literally made Blastoise a battleship with giant cannons on him, which is crazy. And then the other collection I'm starting is one of every Dragapult card. This one's pretty easy. There's only about 5 Dragapult cards out so far, because he is from Sword and Shield. So he's a brand new Pokemon. This copy has a really bad top edge. I don't know if you can see that. See if we can get the camera to focus in a little bit, but you can see there's just a lot of whitening up on that top edge, which is weird. Not a great copy, but at least I will have it for now, and I can always pick up a better one. So yeah, that is the other card I would buy raw. For example, the Dragonite card, going back to that, with the new Evolving Sky set, there's the Dragonite V, the Dragonite V, or the Dragonite, yeah, I think so. There's a Dragonite V card, which is like a promo card. There's a Dragonite V regular set card that looks sort of like what you'd think of a traditional full art card with like a solid red background. And then there is the Dragonite V alternate art card. These 3 I will probably buy all raw and then grade them myself, just because the Dragonite V or the alt art card, for example, is like $60 right now. If somebody gets that graded in a 9 or a 10, they're probably going to be charging several $100s for that. And if you buy one close to launch, within the first couple months of launch, people are going to be sleeving that card. It's not going to get dinged up. You'll probably most likely buy it from an adult who was ripping packs and opened the card. It's going to be very well handled, very well taken care of. The only thing you really have to worry about then is centering and any sort of like print quality issues, but hopefully those aren't too bad. And then you submit that card, and the odds of it grading high are very good. So just to recap quick, when buying cards for your collection, you want to consider the age of the card. The older the card is, the more likely more copies were to get dinged up. You want to consider the price of the raw card versus the price of a graded card. And you want to consider just how expensive everything is, and kind of keep it in check, how much grading is going to cost you, the time, the effort, all of that stuff. And you kind of want to combine it all to think about that. So then going back to the cards I used, we had the Dragonite Game Boy promo, which was old and cheap enough in a 9 that it was worth my time to buy that. We had the Evolutions card, which was so cheap that if I had bought the card myself and graded it, it was worth it to just pay the extra $15 to $20 to get an already graded copy in a very strong grade. Then we had old cards that would just be too expensive. They're just out of your price range to buy already graded. So you'll want to watch auctions and buy a really clean raw copy and then grade it yourself to really add a lot of value and get you a card that you could not have afforded out of your normal budget. And the last one is brand new cards that come out that you can snag that would be too expensive otherwise, like the alternate art cards that are so popular right now. Getting them graded, they could cost you several hundreds of dollars, but you can most likely buy them for the $50 to $75 range, get them graded yourself, and then you don't have to shell out the hundreds that otherwise people will be charging. Hope you guys learned something from this video. I hope it helps you think about some different things when you're buying cards for your collection. I appreciate you all watching. Consider subscribing for more information on building your Pokemon card collection, making a little bit of cash, and just collectibles in general. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.